Welcome to the first episode of Everything's Open, a 7-part limited series. Might extend it after that. We shall see. Now, I started off with the name Open Everything, but decided to go with Everything's Open for a couple of different reasons. One, there was an organization in which I was involved. About a decade and a half ago called Open Everything. And if I hadn't been involved in that, I might not have worried about that because that organization, I don't think that organization had a lot of impact. Yeah, a lot of that's its own story. But for the people that were involved, obviously they'll remember that name. But I don't think that organization got dismantled for technological reasons mostly. But in any case, since I was involved, I thought that might be confusing. The other thing is that I think open everything stemmed from like open source. There was at the time there was a lot of talk about open journalism, open this, open that. So open everything like made sense in that context. But um, just said like that, it also could be a command, like open everything. And I don't know, maybe that's just not the vibe that I wanted. But everything's open. I think is maybe a better fit for the show because the idea. I mean, this is on the Friends of CC Music YouTube and PeerTube, and so the idea is loosely um, that we're talking about music, but and Creative Commons music at that. But this idea of having this um, just sort of open-ended show where things happen um, has been on in my head for a while. Now, I think we did go on a lot of tangents with Music Monument, and um, once you have a long-standing co-host relationship with someone, um, you can kind of riff off those things. But Tom and I's schedules are wildly different. He basically does his business stuff on the weekends, and that's like literally the only time that I'm available. So um, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Although, yeah, I'm open to a reboot if we could find a time on the weekend to make it happen. But in any case, and I guess maybe that's an open invitation to if anybody wants to come and co-host this. But doing things by yourself means that you can just press the record button whenever you want, which is kind of nice. But in this case, we're going to talk about well, the name of it is the origin story. Now, it's not the origin story of this series. I mean, I kind of a little bit just gave you that. But what I wanted to talk about was really the origin story of Friends of CC Music, um, which could theoretically be posed as a history of Creative Commons music, but this thing is gonna cut me off after about an hour, and I don't think you can really do a history that well. I mean, obviously you could do an abridged history, but um, that may be something that we want to do. Like um, do like a whole series of. I mean, maybe like the Creative Commons Music History podcast. Like we have the opportunity now to figure out what do we really need, what do we really have the resources to do, and then we could do that. So I had that idea But I don't think I've done the research for that, first of all. And second of all, I think there's an opportunity to do something bigger there if we wanted to do that. Like there's the History of Tea podcast. There's all these history podcasts, and I've been listening to a lot of them recently. So I think a History of Creative Commons Music podcast might be interesting for someone. I mean, it would definitely be interesting for someone to do. I don't know if it's a good use of my time, but maybe. In any case, um, I when you're telling a history, it's often difficult to decide where to start, especially like when you have limited time. Like if you want to do like the history of Japan podcast and you anticipate doing it for years, well then you can start, in the talking about the dinosaurs and what dinosaurs were relevant in Japan. You could do that, but I don't have that kind of time. So I was thinking about talking a little bit about the history of copyright here at the beginning. And Wikipedia starts the history of copyright with the British Statute of Anne in 1710, uh, which makes sense, I guess. Yeah, if you're talking about, hey, history of copyright, that's a good place to start. But I think that um, starting there kind of misses the point, at least specifically when we're talking about Creative Commons music, because there's this desire from some folks, many folks, maybe it's an innate desire, one might say, um, to share, human to human, um, and music is a part of that. So I think that, obviously, like the real, you know, the real place to start would be the printing press, because you don't get, copyright without the printing press, and they do talk about that in this article. Um, but I think we need to go back, before that even further. So there's two things that I wanna mention, and we can fast forward here in a bit. Um, but the two things that are happening is, um, there were oral traditions, and people would just tell stories and sing music, and they would be folk songs or whatever, and um, those were just passed, and those were intended to be passed from generation to generation to tell histories. Um, yeah, I mean that's its own anthropological study and stuff, but that's an important thing to keep in mind when we're talking about the impulse to share music, that humans have been sharing music for thousands of years. The other thing to keep in mind is that before the printing press, the people that controlled books were primarily the church, at least in Europe. So um, it was going to be rich people, in places where the Catholic Church was not sort of like, the crown, but you needed to have sufficient time, and money to be able to sit and write things by hand. So, um, like if you look at um, the conquest um, of the Aztecs in Mesoamerica, by the Spanish, a lot of those early, those early stories that were written by the Aztecs, the conquered Aztecs, they were written by Spanish, missionaries or clergymen. I guess they weren't missionaries at that point anymore. Clergymen that were teaching the indigenous population. Now the Maya separate from the Aztecs, had their own written tradition, and there was the Popol Vuh, and there's this whole interesting history there. But it's the powerful that that wrote things down. So the printing press um, changed that. Obviously, not everybody had a printing press in their house. So there was still some there was still some means that you needed to be able to publish things. I mean, and of course, writing required being educated. So there's this impulse, maybe to fight against um, against the powerful. So I think those two things are important to understand when you're talking about an opposition movement like Creative Commons. Now, you know, I don't know if people at Creative Commons HQ see themselves as an opposition organization. I mean, I think they were always. I mean, they always talked about themselves as being like an organization that was trying to change things. They were an agent of change. So this wasn't us versus them. It was moving forward together. But ultimately, like um, those sorts of movements, they do. You know, there's conflicting forces. So, um, you know. there I guess what I'm trying to say is there's degrees of like opposition. There's the whole like we want to throw everything away and start from scratch and new world order sort of stuff. And then there's hey, copyright, and there's the copyright industry and they're doing this and we are these people and we want to change that. And so uh the copyright industry had and has power, and so Creative Commons, their impulse is an opposition impulse. And again, like certain people are going to feel that impulse um, greater than others. And of course, some people, maybe like a Trent Reznor, and he kind of tried it and didn't. They're gonna maybe see it more as like the progress. So we don't need to get into the history of movements and such like that in here, but I think that's an important impulse to keep in mind as we go through um, all of this. So there's a lot of things that you know you could talk about in the history of music, but I think that it's probably like you kind of have to talk about electronic music to understand where we are with Creative Commons, or maybe not where we are so much as where we've been. But those are related. So um, again, I'm on Wikipedia here. I'm on the electronic music article, and they're saying that the electroacoustic tape music was created in the 1940s, and then music concrete was created in Paris in 1948, which was based on editing together recorded fragments of natural and industrial sounds. So early on, we have um, this sort of like field, what we would call now, I guess, field recordings thing that exists in the electronic music space. Um, and then they started in the 1950s with algorithmic compositions. And it's funny because now people are all scared about artificial intelligence and large language models and stuff, destroying music. But we've been doing algorithmic composition since the 1950s. Um, and there's like a whole bunch of like stuff, and you can read this article again. I don't know um how much of this, like if we did a full podcast, we could go into electronic music and really dive into like, you know, the history of computers and like MP3s, and like how did we really get to where we are um right now. But I don't think that there's time to do that today. I think that when, obviously synths and midis a um had a hand in where we were going here, and um then we need to, you know the sharing of the music on like BBSs and various things of that nature. Um, that is something that's super important, because people were sharing things before there was Creative Commons. I mean, people were sharing things that they created, and like intentionally sharing things, not just like Napster, and all the different uh, that sort of file sharing software. But people were sharing their music with other folks. So if people want to dig into that a bit more, some of that early stuff, you can go to anki.toner.com, and then you can see a lot of the um, Anki Toner stuff that's up there. But Anki Toner was um, releasing stuff well before Creative Commons, um, and that was under the Hazard Records line. Um, Tom and I did a interview with Anki a way back. And yeah, so Hazard Records was a public domain record label that was started in um, 1998. And then he was also on Rhythmoa Chia, which was Creative Commons, started in 2007. And then 6 RPM. Now, this is some rights reserved, which I don't know how that's different than Creative Commons, but yeah, so I think that's a typo, because when you click on this, it says 16, not 6. Um, so 16 RPM is a reissues net label. So yeah. But anyway, so going back to 98, people were doing not just like, hey, here's my stuff, not just like promotional stuff, but they were putting things in the public domain. And I wish I could remember the oh yeah, it was the demo scene. Okay, I was thinking that would show up on the electronic um, music page, and it's probably on there because it's a long article. But I don't think you can really get to where we are now without the demo scene. Now, the demo scene, as defined by Wikipedia, is an international computer art subculture focused on producing demos, which is self-contained, sometimes extremely small computer programs that produce audio visual presentations. So, um, there's more than just music going on here. But this is a scene that um, went back into the 1980s. I don't have a date here. And they once again reference the 1950s as sort of like a seminal, like historical point for a lot of this music. Um, this says the first crack screens appeared on the Apple II in the early 1980s. Um, but yeah, I mean the early days of sharing were more technical. well, I mean, technical is different, technical in a different way than they are now. And now it's easy to share music with like Bandcamp and stuff, and that has made the scene. Um, it's made things more ubiquitous, which is um, a good thing, I think. But we've lost some of the like interconnectedness because it's so easy to put things on Bandcamp under Creative Commons, or Jamendo, or any of the other places where it's super easy to put things under Creative Commons. Now, if you want to see like maybe some connections between where interesting things are happening or have happened in Creative Commons and map those to the demo scene, then there are a list of demo parties, some of which are ongoing. There's an annual demo party in Berlin, for example, that's been going since 2014. Paris has one. There's Chaos Constructions in St. Petersburg. Looks like that one in Uppsala started in 1993, but Helsinki was 92. And Helsinki and Hamar, Norway, might be the oldest ongoing ones based upon the inspection here, of this Wikipedia demo scene article. Now, demo scene was not something that I was ever involved in, but it is, I think, important for understanding, where people are coming from in the Creative Commons scene. And of course, there was, all the Napster thing. I don't know that we really need to go into that. I mean, it's going to be the case that some of the folks that are watching this weren't alive or weren't, well, hopefully it's the case, I guess. Either weren't alive or were too young to remember the Napster days. So, but again, that should be sort of an easy history to find. All right, I'm kind of losing steam physically here, so I'm going to put this sucker in my mouth. I wonder. So we've had in the past some mixed experiences with sharing movies or sharing videos on Jitsi and going to Jitsi. So I don't know if it makes sense to maybe play like a little interlude here, so that it doesn't get picked up. It's yeah, I'm trying to. I'd like to play you the Napster from where I left off, the Napster Metallica thing, which is probably on here, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe take a break here for 30 seconds and see if we can get away with playing a clip rather than a whole song. And then maybe when we get close to the end of the hour, I will attempt to play a whole song and see if we can still do this. But last time I tried, we were getting spam. So what I'm gonna do here is play a video or some of 30 seconds of a video that was released 17 hours ago. Ostensibly, it's a Christmas track. It's by the artist Void Dweller, and this is Void Dweller's Big Old Goddamn Christmas List. I did not mean to pause that. It just thought I was trying to speak. So yeah, it paused it when I tried to click that away. So I was trying to watch the time and it was on top of that. So I'm gonna try to get us to 30 seconds here. All right. I figured it wasn't gonna be 4 minutes of that. So I wanted to get to where it kicked the end. That was a little punkier than his stuff. A lot of his stuff is like more noise inspired. You can kind of see that there. Um, so we did not get kicked off into spam territory yet. Maybe we could get through one video and then it's the second video that starts to look like spam. I don't really know what their spam filter is all about there, but like I said, maybe we'll um, try to, maybe if I start to fade a bit, then then I can I'll play another one, but we'll try to keep going from there. So one thing that's definitely influenced Creative Commons is net labels. So we already talked about some of those, but we haven't talked about it, um, you know, directly. Um, so Wikipedia again defines a net label as a record label that distributes its music through digital audio formats such as MP3, OGG, Vorbis, FLAC, or WAVE over the internet, which is a pretty useless definition these days, since everybody does that sort of thing, and since plenty of what we would call net labels also list physical media. So I think that um, one of the requirements here is that um, the idea of sharing the music for free. Now, whether that is under a Creative Commons license or um, just sort of like unspoken sort of thing. I mean, I feel like with Bandcamp now, there's not a whole lot of unspoken. There are, of course, other licenses other than Creative Commons, and maybe some of those are uh, worth exploring. Um, so I think probably the most prominent um, art license other than Creative Commons that that isn't like a software license uh, is the free art license. So there is at freedomdefined.org there is a a definition of free culture works, which is separate than Creative Commons. And this is an important thing to understand because free software and free culture are pretty similar. And in the Creative Commons space, the non-commercial licenses and the no derivative licenses are not gonna allow free culture. So it gets a little bit confusing because people um, use these terms interchangeably when they're not interchangeable. Like to say like Creative Commons music is not the same thing as saying what would be, what we would talk about being free music. And it's not free music in either direction. It's not free music in as much as there's no requirement under Creative Commons that someone can give you Creative Commons for free. Like not everybody on Bandcamp allows their downloads to be free. Like there's a limited number of band downloads on Bandcamp, and that's fine. That's not a violation of the license. Um, these days it's less important than it used to be. I mean, it used to be you might have to buy physical media. These days, um, you know, probably you could find it on like a torrent tracker or something. I'm not involved in like the torrent scene at all these days. But if you go to freedomdefined.org, and I suppose I can share my screen here. So they have a list of licenses. It's very good. It's been like this for a long time. So you can see there's an intended scope, science data, works of art, documentation, and some of these are, um, really sort of designed for software. Um, so you can see these are the two free culture licenses. Now, the license sort of what is a license and not a license is not worth getting in here, but some people are going to tell you that the CC0 public domain dedication is not a license because it's a public domain dedication. I don't think that's important. If you get sued, that starts to get important, but for us, it's not important. This copyleft stuff, you will see it. But again, I don't know that that's super important. People talk about copyleft a lot in software. I don't know that it's used that much in the music. Uh, so this is interesting. Practical modifiability. So these, say yes, and then the Creative Commons ones say no. Um, so yeah, so I think the reason they're probably saying that is largely because of their related rights, but I'm not real sure. Let's see what this is about. Um, yeah, I mean, so this is basically saying that like if you don't require stems, then you can't really modify it, which I'm not sure I really buy that. But um what they're saying specifically, yeah, says the licenses require practical modification, usually define a notion of source code or source data. So the Creative Commons licenses don't say you need to give like your ARDR files or however you created it. So the free art license does say that, which is interesting because it's deemed compatible with Creative Commons attribution share alike. Um, so yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't know the details there, but um, yeah, I mean, this is the only license that has any use, and I'm not sure the free art license has much use at all outside of the French speaking world. There is a band from Mali on the Free Music Archive years ago that used the free art license, and that's the only time that I can remember actually coming across it in the wild. But it sounds like people do use it, so it's one to know about. But these other ones, um, especially the ones that say, well, I mean, the documentation is licensed, software license, they're important, I guess, for the history. But I think they might be a little more technical than we really need to get into, and not technical in the like, computer like software sort of sense of the world, but technical in the like legal sort of things. They exist and they're important, but for our little hour long situation here, not sure we need to get into them. So we were talking about net labels. So we talk about net label day, net label guide. But let's just go back to the Wikipedia article, which I have up here actually. Yeah, I mean, net labels have a considerably lower staff count than traditional labels. I'd say most net labels are probably run by a single person, maybe two people. Um, let's see here. Hypnotic Dirge Records. This may not have been the best place to go. Bandcamp may have been better. But let's see here. I know it's great if you're not watching that I stopped talking. But hey, you can send them your demo. Um, well, let's go to the Bandcamp. See if it tells who we got here. Yeah, so it doesn't say who's involved. Maybe it's two people now. I think it used to be one. For a long time, Black Sonic was just Mike, and then now CDoc and I and Sean and Corey are all involved. But I think Black Sonic is strange in that respect. Let's take a gander at the net label day list if we've got them all on a single thing here. All right, so some of these I don't know much about, and Sam was talking about maybe doing some sort of like net label review show. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we could go through a net label a week or something. A lot of options. So, going backwards. Definitely like Flower Pot. I didn't realize they were involved. But yeah, hard to know how many people are involved just based off of this. Yeah, I mean, you know, like I see most of the Mallorca um, releases. Like I definitely subscribe to them. I don't know. I don't have any idea how many people are involved. Um, yeah, so maybe it's just Evo, but maybe not. Because like if you go here, I don't know that you're going to see anything about. I mean, it just says it's in Old Orchard, and Mike's the only one of us that's there. So, um, which is fine. I don't need I don't need a byline or anything like that. Um, yeah. So this is where we come in, where I come in. So you can see for the first 9 years, it was just Mike, or 11 years, depending on depending on how you look at things. I guess it started with the Neblock, so really is 11 years. So yeah, so I mean, those of us that are involved, and we have this story on here, but it's not always obvious, like who's involved with these things. So maybe it would be good to get people on and, hey, these are the people that are doing this, because I really don't know. I know, like some of the people that are doing some of this stuff, um, but yeah. So I mean, um, there's maybe a certain like internet anonymity vibe that comes to a lot of these things. I mean, I've mentioned uh, to folks as we've been starting off to the with friends of CC Music that um, you know CC Music is a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and some people are going to be like super privacy focused, and it's they're not trying to be famous, whereas like so um where was that latest news, best hip hop actor group, best of Richmond, and he was listed on the 40 under 40. Doesn't sound like that's been um made it to the to his page, the 40 under 40. So this is all the way back in June. So I think the 40 under 40, I saw that on Facebook pretty recently. But well, I was gonna say he's got some shows. He's not playing that often. So I mean, he took like a year off, and then now he's got some shows going on there. So I mean, he's like, making stuff happen. And then, if you go through the archives of Music Monument, you'll see plenty of people like, plying their trade in the uh, in the music industry. Um, there was a guy that was in Branson. I don't know if that made the show notes. Yeah. I want to say that was the other Sebastian Bach, but I can't remember. How do you spell Sebastian? Sebastian Bach, but I think it might be Sebastian E. Bach. Oh, I wish that I could remember that guy's name. It'll come to me, I guess, at some point. Um, I think the music monument stuff is on archive.org, but maybe I'll try to put that in the show notes. But yeah, the net label scene, net label day started in 2014. That was 4 years after Tom and I started Music Monument. So that seemed like maybe sort of the golden age of CC music, that early net label day stuff. So Jason Siegel got Free Music Archive off the ground, and then Andrea was in charge over there at Free Music Archive. And then things really, really took off when Cheyenne was in charge of the Free Music Archive. And I don't know what all the story there was, but basically they ran out of funds over at the Free Music Archive, and then WFMU decided to stop funding them, basically, and then they sold them to Kicksplit, and that was a pretty dark time in the CC community. And now Tribe of Noise has the FMA, but it's definitely not the same. And another thing that has happened, maybe I'll share my screen again. Oh yeah, that's the wrong button. So back when CC Mixter started, they had a deal with Creative Commons to use their logo, and then I don't know what all happened with that, but my impression is that the CC organization had a Darth Vader moment. I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it further, sort of situation. And so you can see now that they have changed their logo, and now they are a collaborative community rather than Creative Commons. But if you go in here and look at the remixes, then you can see that they do still carry the Creative Commons licenses, and you can see that it is still being used. So if anybody is like interested in creating music, collaborating with other people's, I would highly encourage folks to go over to CC Music and give it a whirl. Their site has looked like this for a long time. I think that's something that they could really use some help on that front. So, you know, that is something that Friends of CC Music could potentially um, get behind. Um, we're both community driven organizations. Excuse me, I sneeze. Oh, I sneezed twice. So, you know, I think a lot of the things that a lot of folks involved in CC music, it's more like a band or a musician. So it's a little bit different vibe over at CC Mixter, but it's a good vibe. So yeah, I think we should. Um, yeah, if we have the opportunity, I think we should help them. I wish that they would sort of get involved in moving this forward, but they just may not have the resources. Um, so you know that happened in, I'm not sure exactly when the CC music sort of thing happened, but you've got the CC music HQ, fighting with CC Mixter. Eric Stewart, who used to be a great music ambassador over at Creative Commons, left. Um, so, we've been through the last few years some dark times in the Creative Commons community, and I guess the Friends of CC Music is just a way to, um, sort of bring back some of the old positive vibes um, that that we used to have. But like I said, CC Mixter is still going strong. Um, the Bugcast is on episode 831. Um, so like a lot of these things are still existing. Um, I think it's there's a .net. Dogma and Zeke is still doing their thing. I don't know what episode that they were on. It's interesting. This says English up here, but maybe that's the change of that. Okay. Um, yeah. Licensed C reaction. Mm, yeah, I guess they don't. They don't like those. They don't like the public domain declaration. I don't know why they don't like it, but um, yeah. So yeah, we had Dogma Zeke on Music Monument many moons ago, and I think, I mean, part of the thing about some of these organizations like CC Music and Dogma Zeke is like um, there's not really a forum for them to talk to each other. I mean, obviously they could like exchange emails and stuff like that. Um, but I guess I know that back when Cheyenne was at the Free Music Archive, um, there used to be a group of folks that got together. I don't know who all was involved with that, but I think CC Mixter um, and FMA at the very least. Um, So, it'd be good if we could get, I don't know, um, Dog Mazik involved. Um, and maybe people could start putting stuff up on there. One of the reasons why that I wanted to have like a musician be a prominent um, figure in the Friends of CC Music is that I don't have any music to upload there, which is not necessarily literally true. I could pull some old stuff off of SoundCloud and go through the process at Damazik and see how it all works. Um, I mean, some of that stuff Tom and I used to do for the podcast. We'd like go through and like, hey, this is how a site works for a music monument. I mean, um, yeah. So they maybe don't allow CC0, but that C license seemed to. My French is not very good, but I kind of got the impression it was kind of like that. Um, but I don't know. So it looks like they're yeah, licenses table. Let's see what they've got on their licenses table here. Oh, this is a lot of stuff. Yeah, so they've got a pretty exhaustive list here. Um, so I don't like the license Art Libre. That's the free art license. Not a big fan of translating proper nouns, and I think the name of a license is a proper noun. So if you see free art, that's the exact same thing as this. And in fact, um, if you go here, you'll see that they do this themselves. They've caused this own problem. And I understand that they're like trying to be cosmopolitan here and offer it in all these different languages. I think that's Polish, Italian, German, more German, Spanish. I guess that's French, Portuguese. So, and then I'm guessing that's Chinese with the CN. I think the Swiss URL is CN, but that doesn't look like Swiss to me. So, but yeah, I mean I get that they should have just called these the languages and had translations of the actual license, in my view, rather than changing the license name. I mean the name of the URL is Art Libre, so I think it should just be called License Art Libre. That's my 2 cents, but. In any case, I mean, we're talking about history and how we got here. Let's see how we're doing on time. So we don't have a whole lot of time, but a lot of people have tried to solve this problem in various different ways. EFF, I don't know anything about this one. This one must be, yeah. So the EFF at some point produced a license. I don't know why they would do that, but I guess they thought the Creative Commons licenses weren't good enough. But I think a big event, since we're talking about history in the world of open licenses, is back in 2014, the free art license. Remember the Art Libre guys that I call them free art, even because that's how it's always translated in English. Maybe I should just start saying Art Libre. The Art Libre guys and Creative Commons, with their new versions, they became compatible. So I think that this is talking about Creative Commons 2.0, and so you might still find that out there, and then they're going 2.5, 3, and then finally the 4.0s down here. So yeah, a lot of different licenses out there, but if you go to I mean, Google takes this too far, and they only allow CC BY as their one Creative Commons license. But um, yeah, you can see that, you know, this is one of my favorites, the WTFPL. Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna. I mean, maybe we could just take this list and say, anything that Dogma Zeke has said would be fine. That we'll promote it. But we kind of have to think about um, bang for buck as well, because I don't. Other than Dogma Zeke, I'm not sure of any websites that use these things. So, I guess if other sites are using these licenses, a lot, then somebody needs to let me know, because I don't think any of them are very prominent. So, um, you know, um, I feel like